to Teachers Teaching Teachers. It's June 20th, 2012, and it's cooler in Colorado, where a few of our guests are coming from tonight, and hotter in New York City, where some of the rest of us are. Gail, we didn't check the temperature there up in Northern California. How's it up there? Oh, Gail, you're muted. She's very good at muting. Anyway, unmute so you can talk. There you go.
Yeah, we actually have air conditioning on today, and so we've had about a week of 100 degrees, around that range. Too. Yeah.
And how's it in Michigan, Jeremy? Welcome to the show, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much. It's like 95, 96, so we've been dealing with very humid weather the last couple of days. So yes, air conditioning is on.
Okay. So a little chit-chat here. I'm kind of excited. Sometimes we have 1,000 different ideas and lots of things to do, and tonight we decided to focus in on one person, and that's Tommy Buteau, who was on our show. I was going to go back and check, Tommy, but I think a couple of years ago even.
I think it was about a year ago.
Oh, that close? Okay.
Yeah, it was just before I started working at Windsor High. So.
Great. So, and we have a couple of other people joining us as we speak, but Gail Desler is with us, Deb Kauffman, Jeremy Hyler, Monika Hardy is here, I'm Paul Allison, Shantanu Saha is here. Looks like Valerie Burton is going to be joining us as well. Why don't we go quickly and introduce ourselves? So unmute everybody and say hello. Gail, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everybody. I'm Gail Desler, and I'm in California. I live up in the Sierra foothills, and I work down in the Sacramento area in the Elk Grove School District, largest public school district in Northern California, actually.
And say a little bit about what you're doing this summer. That's pretty cool. Just briefly.
Well, we were a guest, and when I say we, my writing project colleague, Natalie.
Can you pull your mic down a little bit?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. There we go. Better.
My writing project colleague, Natalie Bernasconi, and I have teamed up, and for this past year we've been collaborating on a project to provide resources for students and teachers around issues of digital citizenship. And so it seems to keep building and building, and next month we're actually going to head to Seattle, Washington, Redmond actually, and we're going to compete in U.S. Microsoft's Partners in Learning U.S. Forum, and with our digital citizenship project. So, they're very upfront that what they're really looking for is STEM projects. But we've made the first cut. So the next cut, 10 projects out of the 100 coming to Seattle, will go to the International Forum in November in Athens, Greece.
And I just want to give some context also. When we started Youth Voices now, a good dozen years ago perhaps, Gail had already done some connecting people in blogs and so forth, and I think you had the name Youth Voices first, and we stole it from you. And Gail has had...
oh, you know what? You did steal it.
There we go.
Totally
I admit it. At any rate, so Gail's been with us for a long time and helping to connect teachers, and we hope you can help us continue to do that out there somehow. Deb, you're kind of brand new here. Welcome.
Yeah. Hi.
Introduce yourself.
I've been lurking a lot. I've watched from the sidelines and hanging out with Monika at the BU house. I work at a library, and I've homeschooled and unschooled my children, and who are now 16 and 20 and getting ready to go off into the world and use the skills that they've taught themselves. Wow. And I just want other kids to have that kind of freedom of learning. And so I'm interested in doing that now that I'm pretty much done educating them. I'm ready to support other children, and I'm just here to learn.
Very cool. Jeremy, introduce yourself, please.
My name is Jeremy Hyler. I am from the Chippewa River Writing Project in Central Michigan. Actually, it's located on Central Michigan University's campus right in the middle of Michigan, and I'm new here. to Youth Voices, and I am actually going to be using Youth Voices starting next week with our middle school writing camp at CMU that I will be co-directing with another one of my CRWP colleagues, and I am also going to be using it next year in my classroom as well. So I'm hoping that this next week will be kind of a trial run. I can see what worked, what didn't work, and then I can move forward with it for next school year.
Cool. What's new with you, Monica? Welcome.
Oh, man.
We're old. Whatever you want to say.
I'm really glad that Deb's here. She lives in the same place as Tommy. And Deb is one that I've learned quite a bit from. There's a couple unschooling moms that have taught me a lot about deliberately not teaching as I am working with the Thompson School District Innovation Lab in Loveland, Colorado.
Cool. And I'll say what's new with me. I've been messing with Badge Stack and thinking about badges, and fortunately we have Monica and others around to help me be skeptical about it. But I have my own skepticism, which is fine. Anyway, Gail's holding something. Oh yeah, okay. Anyway, so I've been having, even though like I go and proctor a test, which makes me want to, not be, it makes me ill. And then I go and mess around with curriculum, and so that's been fun this week, is what I've been messing with. Shantanu, welcome. Shantanu, I told Tommy that you were coming on and said he's the guy who does all those Scratch projects. But introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, my name is Shantanu Saha. I teach at the Baccalaureate School for Global Education in Queens, New York, and I've been there for 10 years. The school is 10 years old, by the way, and I've been there since the beginning. I've known Paul.
You're the only one who knows the password to the server, right? So.
Yeah.
Just teasing. Go ahead.
I think so.
I wasn't joking. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I think I might have changed it at one point just so I could get in and do work on it. But I've been using Youth Voices for years, and this year I've used it with 8th and 7th grade classes. And in fact, tomorrow and Friday, the kids are, my 7th grade kids are going to be putting up their final projects for the year on Youth Voices. They've been creating games in Scratch, and I'm going to have them put them up and see what the reaction is.
I loved the way, and we'll have to do another show just with you sometime, but I love the way that your 7th graders looked at your 8th graders' projects before they did their own.
Right.
That was pretty neat.
That was a deliberate thing. We had some technical issues around that, like trying to do a search for those videos. Essentially, either crashed Youth Voices or just ground it to a halt for a while. So I ended up just getting the URLs for the individual posts and just giving them a list and say, pick 3 out of this and respond to them.
That works. Yeah. There's a lot going on getting the JavaScript to work on all that.
Yeah.
Valerie, welcome. Introduce yourself, please, and then we'll get to you, Tommy. I promise.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
No. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Valerie Burton. I teach at West Jefferson High School in New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm now part of the Greater New Orleans Writing Project. I'm happy to say thank you, Paul. That's partly due to you.
So when did that start?
It started about 2 weeks ago.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that's a lot of fun. And I look forward to, I'm getting a new class. I'll be teaching juniors and seniors next year, and I look forward to getting my juniors and seniors onto Youth Voices and publishing, writing, and collaborating and hanging out with you guys more than I did last year.
Cool. So we have Chris Sloan at least twice here. Chris, which part of you is coming? When he gets here, he'll introduce himself. That's fine. Tommy, introduce yourself a little bit more. Would you say you're a second or third year teacher? And then
This is my second year teaching at Windsor High. And I did long-term subs before that for about a year. It's great to be here, and it's great to see other people from Colorado. I feel almost like I should look this way when I'm talking to somebody farther down on the list there. But I see that both Monika and Deb are from Colorado, so I think it'd be great if we could get, more teachers using it around here. Because whenever I look at the map on Youth Voices, I always feel like, oh, geez, I'm the only one out here. So that'd be great if we can figure out how to arrange that somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And I used Youth Voices quite a bit last year. I did 3 major projects on it, and then I also used it, as a place for students to test out ideas and look at other people's work and comment on it. So I really loved it for that.
Mm-hmm. And of course, you've done other things too. So we'll talk about that as well as we go.
Okay.
But one of the things we thought, just in talking about how to proceed here, is that we'd give about 10 minutes on each of the 3 projects, and then see how that goes from there.
Okay, that sounds good.
Just so we can kind of cover some bases here.
Okay. I guess I'll start. I'll try out this screen share and see how that works. Okay, so let's see if I can get to something here.
You got it.
Yeah, here's the first project that I did with my media studies classes, and I was really looking for a way to have them do a little bit of research and without making it seem like a research project. And so I put together this idea where they would look for first we started out with one of the other missions on Youth Voices, which is the 10 questions one. And so they kind of explored around and discovered what they were interested in writing about. And then after doing that, I had them find an article that was related to it in some way or other. And then when they wrote the articles, they would combine research based on an official article somewhere, along with something that made it attractive to an audience, like something you could put into a magazine. And they really got into it, and they created some great projects, and a really wide variety of different things. Incarceration rates, role model for siblings, cars of the futures, etc. Which is why I really like that 10 questions, because you get a real wide variety. The one I wanted to share with you is this one that this student did on Brandy Norwood. And the only reason I want to share this one is she asked me to write and see, I had them include references down at the bottom and all that kind of stuff. So
Tom, could you, sorry to interrupt, but could you explain, they were to find 2 sources? They had to be different in some way. Could you just go over that one more time?
Yeah, they had to have at least two sources. This student had 3, I think. And one of the sources had to be more kind of scientific, related to the bigger question. Like, for example, this student's question was on motherhood and what makes a good mother. And so she found one article that was, kind of a psychological study, something like that. And then in addition to that, they had to find an article that had sort of a mass appeal, something that would make it interesting for an audience. So if they were to publish it in a magazine, that is what would pull the people in. And so she found an article, I think it was actually from a blog on Brandy Norwood, who I think is a singer. I'm not really sure who it is, but it's some famous person. And so in the article itself, they had to combine those and include information from both of the sources. And so it's kind of research, and bringing in many different perspectives. And the only reason I included this one is a lot of these, whenever I've used Youth Voices or got students published in some way, students get into it more. And a lot of times students who really don't participate in my normal classes will do these kind of projects because they know that other people are going to be looking at it. And this one I just wanted to share because she asked me to write a letter of recommendation for colleges, and I included this in it. I said, oh, this was a great example of, her creating something that was research-based, but it also was very artistic and explored a lot of different ideas. And she ended up getting a scholarship based on it. And so I think just that aspect of Youth Voices is that it's out there and other people can see it is really important and something that should be, done more in school, I think.
Do you know what? Later we're going to watch a video, so let's also appreciate writing. And do you mind reading it?
Oh, sure, I can if you like. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So this is Brandy Norwood. Is she the ideal mother? And wonderful student, Jo is her name. She also participated in the movie project that I'll share later on. And so the article goes, Brandy Norwood is defined as a good mother due to several reasons. The first reason being she knows how to balance her career and raise her daughter. I think her daughter's name is Sierra. In a safe and private environment. Not only does Brandy want to create a safe environment for Sierra, she also does not want her involved in television at her current age. Numerous amount of people would argue and say it is Brandy's husband that has decided to keep her away from the media, but others would disagree and say she was the one who wanted her to stay away from the spotlight. Rather, it was her husband's or her idea to keep Sierra away from the media. Brandy has always expressed that if one, say, Sierra want to get involved in television, she will be there to back her up. But before so, she wants to make sure she is old enough to know the consequences of being famous and that she experiences how it is to have a somewhat private life. Brandy is also defined as a good mother because she puts Sierra's needs in front of her own, which is what a good mother should always do. For Brandy, trust is extremely important. Therefore, she made a decision to become her daughter's best friend and less of a parent. Brandy seems to think this is the right way to raise her daughter due to the fact that Sierra will always be honest with her no matter what. Other parents could argue that this is an incorrect way to raise a child, but if the method of being a friend before parent is more effective, what is so wrong? A good mother should not only be caring and loving toward her child, but also her family. The treatment the mother's family get will in the future affect the relationship the child has with the rest of her family. Brandy Norwood sets another good example for a good sister. Her brother Ray J has been during countless reality shows and is mostly known for his music, which Brandy has been supporting him in from the beginning till the end. Brandy has also been involved in some reality shows Ray J has been doing, which would of course make their relationship stronger and keep them closer together. In an article published by the SF Gate, they talk about women's image of the 21st century mom and how every woman has their own opinion on what a good mother is. The article describes good mothers as hardworking but harried, loving and indulgent, seeking support from friends rather than family, and feeling guilty about not doing a better job at home. Deborah Tannen, a professor of linguistics at Georgetown University and the author of the best-selling You're Wearing That, Understanding Mothers and Daughters in Conversation, explains that daughters seeing their mothers as confidants and best friends is a development that's unusual in the history of humankind. But is Deborah Tannen correct, or is Brandy Norwood's method of being a friend more effective? Mothers are not just the women that feed their children, get them dresses, and drive them to school every day. They are also role models. A survey was done, and over a third of the women say that sometimes feeling like they're turning into their mothers, which they thought was a nice feeling. 47-year-old Janet Bengston, who is a mom to 3 teenage sons, explains that I realized recently that I talk the same as my mother, that when my feelings are hurt, I get very quiet, hold my breath, and count to 10 like she used to do. So in other words, mothers can have a huge impact on our lives, whether we grow up with one or one day want to become one. We all need to figure out how we want our children to be raised, because eventually one day it is who they will become. And then she has the references listed down at the bottom.
Cool. So who would like to talk back to Tommy about that piece? What do you see there that student's doing? Jump in, folks.
Or can I start off by asking Tommy a question?
Sure.
The 10 question whatever, what was that again? The 10 question like inquiry thing that the kids had to do?
Yeah, it's one of the missions on Youth Voices. I think it's under Literature and Inquiry.
Right.
And I don't know who wrote it, but it was there when I was looking around last year.
Okay.
And in it, they have to. I spent a couple of days working on it, and they spend time writing 10 questions about the world that they have, and then also 10 questions about themselves. And then after that, they kind of narrow it down to one that they're really interested in. And so, they get a wide range of questions, and then they narrow it down to one. And I've used it several times. It worked great for this project. I also used it for another research paper that we did postmodern movies with. And I find it's just a great way for them to really narrow down their ideas and figure out what it is they want to research.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that was something you created or if it was actually on there, so that's good to know.
Yeah, it's actually on Youth Voice. I could try to find the link for you.
My favorite emails to Tommy are the stuff your students are putting up is really great. Guess what I want, and what I always want is his description of what his students did. And so we do get, eventually we get those up, and then the student's work is next to that description. So most of what you see here will be there available on Youth Voices somewhere. I'll go back and say that idea of the 10 self, 10 world questions comes from James A. Bean, who's an Australian educator and wrote a book about democratic education, I think it was. He actually imagines that the whole middle school curriculum could be based around getting just kids' questions, and so it's all about. So, and I think it's important in Youth Voices because it's kind of makes clear that what we hope kids are working on are the writing and doing projects on things that they're passionate about, things they really care about, questions they really have. So, yeah, great. It's great to have it come back here that way. Other thoughts about the piece of writing? Research is also a really important thing that happens a lot on Youth Voices, and what's so interesting is to see how different people do research. And I don't know if Chris Sloan is able to talk to us yet, but it's fascinating to watch his kids do research, and it's been fascinating to watch Jamal, a teacher here in the Bronx, have her kids do research, and to kind of see different takes on that. And certainly, Tommy, your take with this news item was a research project of a sort. How would you see it as research? How did it compare to other research projects you've done?
Well, okay. I think generally when students think of research, I mean, what I've experienced is they tend to focus just on...
Whoa!
Picking up a lot of noise there.
That's okay. Keep going.
Okay. They tend to focus just on the kind of the scholarly articles, and they don't get into it so much. And so I was really looking for a way for them not only to find out information about whatever subject it was they were interested in, but also find a way to kind of relate to it more and to compare it to other people that they're interested in. And so I really just tried to focus on, you have to get the research, but you also then have to find some way to relate it to a larger world. If you can find a musician or a media personality that you really like that's also thinking about this issue, then that's great, because they can kind of compare their own thoughts to what another person that they kind of consider as a mentor is thinking about the same thing. And so I really tried to just use it as a way to have them engage more with the idea and see it from another perspective rather than just their own and kind of the official research. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Any other thoughts anybody have? Any questions about this project? Or ideas you'd like to push us and Tommy on? Anything?
Actually, this is Gail. I just wanted to comment. I already liked the project when I saw the heading that it was on news and giving kids chances to explore things they care about in the news. I think one thing that has disappeared in the testing environment, and I'm going to speak more from the elementary schools because it seems like this last year I've been hanging out more there than middle or high school, But just the, in the old days when kids would bring the news article, and give a little report of the news article, I don't see that anymore. And so somewhere in the curriculum, I think, starting in elementary, students have to have these opportunities to explore the news and to delve into those pieces that really intrigue them. So I think it's a great project.
Great.
Shall we move to another one?
Okay. Let's take.
We can always circle back if people.
Sure. Yeah. I want to take a look at the project that I did that was a real multimedia project, because that's another reason I like Youth Voices. It's a way to really share the multimedia aspects, which this is the only way I've really found in a classroom to do that. So I'll take a quick look at the mission that I created that was with that. That is here. And it's on Youth Voices, and basically we started with the same 20 questions mission. Here's a link to it, and then they needed to find.
Do they have to do the 20 questions again, or can they just go back to what was there already?
This was a totally different class. This was my American Lit class.
Got it.
Yeah, so we did the same thing in my American Lit class, and then once they had found a question that they were interested in, there were several elements that they had to include in the multimedia presentation. And we were reading the book, The Things They Carried, and so they had to have some passages from the book itself, The Things They Carried, that related to their question. And then they had to find an interview, clips from movies that they could download off of YouTube. And then they also had to talk about how their view on the issue or the question had changed through the process. And they recorded that as well, and then put that layer of audio over the top of it. And I've got one.
At some point in mid-July, I began thinking seriously about Canada. The border lay a few hundred miles north, an 8-hour drive. Both my conscience and my instincts were telling me to make a break for it. Just take off and run like hell and never stop. In the beginning, the idea seemed purely abstract, the word Canada printing itself out in my head, but after a time I could see particular shapes and images, the sorry details of my own future. A hotel room in Winnipeg, a battered old suitcase, my father's eyes as I tried to explain myself over the telephone.
Perhaps the most revolutionary development of recent years has been that of the computer, because for the first time we've discovered a machine that can substitute, at least in part, for the human brain. Before that, it was just a matter of saving human muscles, of using machinery to spare what human muscles couldn't do very well. And computers come in all sizes because they've been getting smaller and smaller. We've got these tiny little microchips now. And as a result, every industry, the government itself, tax collecting agencies, airplanes, everything depends on computers. We have personal computers in the home. And they are constantly getting better, cheaper, more versatile, capable of doing more things, so that we can look into a future when, for the first time, humanity in general will be freed of all kinds of work that's really an insult to the complex human brain, that requires no great thought, no great creativity. Leave all that to the computer, and we can leave to ourselves those things the computers can't do, such things as imagination, creativity, fantasy, intuition, problem solving, where we don't have to have the exact conditions and know exactly what's happening. We have an intuitive feel for what the solution ought to be. No computer can do that. And we can save our own brains for that purpose. Artificial intelligence is a phrase that we use for any device that does things which in the past we have associated only with human intelligence. For instance, if you have a machine that can alphabetize cards very rapidly, until recently only human beings could alphabetize cards. In that case, you've got an example of artificial intelligence. But this does not necessarily mean that something that is artificially intelligent thinks, quote unquote, precisely as a human being does. It may be a completely different kind of intelligence. The machines may specialize in certain, quote, mental activities, while human beings specialize in others. We do a great many things we're not good at. For instance, we're not really good at arithmetic. We need help. We need numbers, we need pen and paper, we need devices. Well, the cheapest computer in the world can multiply and divide faster and more accurately than we can. That's its specialty. Our specialty is different things. So that you end up not having artificial intelligence and natural intelligence identical, but two different things, two different specializations. They work together. Each supplies the lack of the other. And in cooperation, they can advance far more rapidly than either could by itself. Furthermore, computers are not just immobile things, because you can hook computers up to machinery and have the machines that spare human muscles also act in such a way, in such a versatile way, that they seem to be thinking. You have artificial intelligence applied to machines, and we call them robots. In science fiction, you always think of robots as man-like metallic creatures. But actually, any machine that's computerized is a robot. And we have industrial robots right now that don't look the least bit like human beings, and yet that do things that until just a couple of decades ago, only human beings could do. And we're going to live in a future, perhaps, in which we will have personal robots as well. Robots that do look like human beings and that replace, for the first time, what we used to call servants and free us all. For the first time, we're going to be free, really, truly free, humanity as a whole. Now again, what's life going to be like if we are completely computerized and completely robotized? What are the side effects? Will there be difficulties? Undoubtedly. Will there be things that we won't like? Undoubtedly. But we've got to think about it now, so as to be prepared for possible unpleasantness and try to guard against it before it's too late. We always have to do that. It's like in the old days when the automobile was invented. It would have been so much better if we had built our cities with the automobile in mind, instead of building cities for a pre-automobile age and finding we can hardly find any place to put the automobiles or to allow them to drive. This is the sort of thing that we must avoid in the future. The time has come to move on. This is the change that you have been waiting for. Be still and wait, better days are ahead. Take the first step into freedom. Hey, you.
found that robots will be a big part of the future. With the breakthrough that Honda has done with Asimov humanoid servant robots are becoming a reality. Also with the military looking into the robotics for use in recon and load carrying, robots are advancing rapidly. My views have become clear that working with robots will be a viable future, and that's where I should be going.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so this student, his question, of course, was on robotics. He was very interested.
That's Christian coming in, and I'm going to mute him until he gets in. Keep
Okay.
going. Yeah.
So that student was very interested in robotics. He was in, actually, another teacher that started at the same time I did, taught a class on robotics, and he was in that class, and that was the only thing he talked about all semester long. And in the multimedia project, he included, that interview with Isaac Asimov, and he had clips from iRobot, and he also had passages from the book that he was reading, and including over the top of some of those images of robotics from the military. And so he was really able to get totally into that topic and see it from many, many different perspectives, and see how it's been used in movies, how it's been used in the military, how authors have written about it, and how it related to the book that we were reading, the things they carried. So that's how I designed that project, to really allow students to get into different layers of it. And it worked great. The only thing I would change is on Youth Voices, in addition to the video, I had them post underneath it their reflection. So you can kind of read in the reflection why they were including all these different clips. Because sometimes the clips, when you're watching, it's not really clear what they were getting at. But when you have the reflection there, it's really works really well. But the only thing that I would change is I didn't get in MLA citations or anything, and that's part of the Colorado standard. So next year, in the reflection itself, I would have them cite, and so we can meet that part of the standards. But other than that, I thought the project worked really good. And the students, again, just totally got into it. A lot of times at that class, I was able to have the computer lab every day for the semester. It's normally a business class, but it was during that teacher's planning period. And a lot of times in classes like that where you're on computers all the time, you'll look around and people will be doing whatever. But when we were doing this project in the last few weeks of the school year, there were times when I would, leave the room to go download something for somebody, and I would come back and the whole room would be silent, and people were totally focused on, trying to incorporate their videos and get their point across. So I was really impressed with how much the technology just made them get into it. So I'm definitely going to do it again next year. Are there any questions about
a taste of that project? Yeah, let's please folks, speak up.
Well, I have an observation.
Yeah,
Hi, Chris. Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things I notice is this idea of integration. You're using a lot of different media and sources. The first post we read, it was like something from a book, something from an article. And then we see in this latest, the video, we've got a lot of different sources being integrated. Are you doing that, would you say, on purpose, or are the kids just finding those things and it's coming about naturally? Or
It's funny. I think that's just part of the way that I think about things, because I don't really with this multimedia project, I intentionally set out to have them include many different sources: the book, an article, various places that they've found videos or interviews. But I always tend to do that because I just think when people see more than one perspective, they tend to get more engaged and to get a wider view of the subject itself. And I find, in high school, it's really easy to see sort of questions as yes or no, and that's one reason I called this a postmodern research multimedia project was I wanted them to see that there are so many different ways to view everything, and that there is no real yes or no answer. There's no, oh, this is what robotics is all about. You can only really say, well, this is what this person thought about robotics, but then this person thinks this. And so I don't know, I think that's just part of my personal philosophy and the way I approach things.
Other thoughts?
What was your Tommy? What was your criteria for the students as far as and I use the term grading loosely, but like how are they graded? I mean, how much did you focus on the research aspect of it? How much did you focus on grammar? Any of those things that you could include in it?
Sure. Well, most of my projects, the multimedia project, I ran out of time. It was bigger than I thought it was going to be. But generally what I do is I have them do a first draft and then a peer review, which is another reason I like Youth Voices. I've got, if we have time, I'll show you a podcasting project I did, not on Youth Voices, but similar type concept. And then after the peer review, a final draft. And so normally my grades are based on improvement from the rough draft to the final draft, and then they have to meet certain criteria. Like in the research, they have to have a citation, and whatever the criteria is. So that's kind of the way I approach it. I find it's the easiest for me to do and the easiest for them to feel like if they're improving, they're going to get a good grade,
No, I understand.
Are you still using Docs to start things?
Google Docs, yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I use Google Docs a lot. And then should we take a look? I would love to share this podcasting project that I did with you also. Then it's kind of got some peer review elements in it.
Sure.
So I'll go back to the screen share. See if I can find it.
So was that one queued up? Doesn't matter. We can get to it.
Yeah, I've got it here.
Cool.
This one was this was in my American Lit class. It was the first semester, so it was actually a different class because at semester all the students basically changed classes than the one that did the multimedia project. But it was a personal narrative, and I put them all up as podcasts, so they would have their rough draft posted. You can see the rough draft for this one is here. And then at the bottom they would have their podcast of it. And so once they had gotten the recording done, and we have a set of iPods, so they just use the iPods with microphones to do that. Then I had students that were in a college level composition and lit class do the peer review. So they would go in and read the rough draft and listen to it at the same time. So you get a really much higher level of engagement, because when you hear it and read it at the same time, it's much easier to tell what people are talking about. And so then after that, the students made their final draft based on the comments that came through this peer review form, which is on a Google form. So it gives you everything in an Excel sheet, and then you just send it out to the students. So after that, they created their final version, and we put the final version up as well. And so I've got the whole class. And the reason I chose this one to share with you is the final version. You can see you put in paragraphs and other things. But what I really like is this last line. This student says, this is absolutely, positively, 100% factually, with no doubt in my mind, the longest paper I have ever written. And again, it's for some reason, when you use technology and allow the students to kind of explore on their own they get much more engaged. I've always had students that normally don't really produce anything will participate in projects like this, and that's one of the reasons I really like technology a lot.
So, Tommy, I wanted to circle back on the multimedia project for a second.
Yeah.
Because you brought up the MLA citation issue, and
Sure.
I think it goes beyond that. The questions that project raises for me.
Sure.
And there are lots of parts of that project that I love, but if I could say, the videos tend to be, if you really spend some time with them, you can kind of see what the kid was putting together. Mm-hmm. And like you said, it needs the reflections. Right?
Yeah.
So, you know what? Here's what I thought. They're like collages, right?
Yeah.
They're collaging together media from other places, and there's something wonderful about that. But there's also something kind of almost unfinished and needs a little more embedding or something. I'm not sure what it needs, but I just wanted to bring that up. It's not just that they're not citing the sources; it's that they're using the sources in ways that we haven't taught them to use before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I do think this is a project that I want to work more with, because I've kind of was putting together a sample while the students were working on it, and in that one I was trying to solidify it a little bit more, or make it a little bit more solid how the research was connected to what my topic was about. But I ran into the same problem that the students did, that you need something written down to kind of solidify it, and that's why the reflections are important, and you can get that element, I think, included in the reflections on it.
And related to all of that, I think, is on Youth Voices, some of them are 10 minutes long, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So my students looked at them and said, "Oh, those are really long," and didn't respond, right?
Sure, yeah.
So how to make a research project accessible to, they need to be shorter, I guess, or or something.
And
it's an
most of
question.
them, yeah, most of them, when I was going through, looking at them at the end, most of them would be improved a lot just by cutting it down on, the length. And so next year I was thinking, when I did it, that I would make it a requirement that they're, maybe 5 minutes long max, something like that. And then you would have more, because you would have a little bit tighter control on what was going into the actual video. You would have more focus also on why they were including that particular clip, and so it would be a little bit more related to the research aspect of it too. Like I said, this was the first time I've ever done it, so it was a fascinating process to go through.
Absolutely. And you've written about it very clearly on the mission, and we can try it too. And that's the wonderful thing about Youth Voices, I hope, is that we can try our own version of it, and you can see what we do, and you can we can keep building together. So thank you for putting that out there.
Sure.
There was a third project. Do we want to try to get to that?
Yeah, let's do it. Actually, there's 2 more projects that I'd like to share with you. One that we did. Let me see if I can get this screen cast thing going again. Screen share.
Okay.
Okay, this one is here. It's called Bookdrum, and it's this web page, bookdrum.com, that produces, it's basically, it's not really a review, it's kind of like information that goes along with a book. And we made one. My class made one for the book, The Things They Carried. And so they wrote this kind of introduction section, and then they did these bookmarks. For each 25 pages, they would find things that happened or were spoken about in the book that they were unfamiliar with, like this P38 can openers. There's the quote from the book, and somebody went and found a picture of it and described what that actually is. And they can include videos. I think down at the bottom here, there's a video of a geisha putting on makeup, because that was mentioned in the book. The quote is, "A hospital with warm beds and cute geisha nurses," or geisha, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. And so they do that for each 25 pages, and then they have a review. They talk about the setting. This is the region in Vietnam where the book happened, and there's one scene that happens throughout the book about a river. That was the setting. Let's see. They also have a glossary, so any words that they find that they don't know, they have definitions of those. Talk about the author. Then there's an interactive map that has links to all of the various bookmarks that are map locations, and then a summary.
And the whole class is working on the one book
The
journal?
whole class, yeah, the whole class was working on it. So basically what I did was, actually I did the same thing with the Raisin in the Sun, kind of to get them ready for it. I just created a wiki. It's all in the same format, though. And so they'd already done it once in groups, so they kind of knew what the process was. But then when we were doing this book, sort of for each section of reading, they would have to turn in one bookmark and one glossary term. And then, various students chose to do the author page or the review page or whatever. And they did well enough on it that they actually published it. So I was really happy about that. They did a great job on it. And they were, they got quite engaged in it, and they know a lot about the book now. I mean, there's a lot of bookmarks in there that I didn't know what they were all about. So that was one project I wanted to talk about. And then the other one that we did on Youth Voices was this letter writing. And it was with the same book, The Things They Carried. And in The Things They Carried, the opening chapter is called The Things They Carried, and the author goes through all of the things that the soldiers are carrying on their body in the war. And it's, all sorts of various things. Yeah.
So could you just read the mission? And by the way, and so if you're listening to this on the podcast, so youthvoices.net, and then go to missions, and you can find this description there, and the student work attached to it.
Yeah, it's under literature and inquiry. Okay, so for this mission, we were using the short story, The Things They Carried, from Tim O'Brien's novel, The Things They Carried. This great lesson plan was developed by Suzanne Rubenstein. The lesson plan and many useful handouts can be accessed at NCTE's Read, Write, Think website. There's supposed to be links embedded under there, but they didn't come through for some reason. I'll have to
You sent
go
that
in
to
and
me.
fix that.
I'll fix it. Don't worry. Yeah,
okay.
Go ahead.
So she created this, and it worked great in my class. First, the class spent some time discussing the things they carry every day. I asked where they traveled from to get to the class, and I also asked them what they carried with them on the journey. In their list, they detailed things found in their backpacks, pockets, cars, purses, and wallets. Next, we read the things they carried, and students focus on Tim O'Brien's use of the list. We spend some time talking about the things the soldiers carry, and we consider the symbolic weight of these various things. We notice how they can be a positive or negative weights and concrete or abstract items. We go back to the lists the students generated about what they carry, and they add anything they may have thought of while we're reading Tim O'Brien's story. Then we continue to discuss the objects on their list. What is the symbolic weight of the objects? Things that are more important have more weight, but each item will be different for each student. For some, the weight of their homework is heavy, something they think about all evening. For others, of course, homework doesn't signify any weight at all. It is a personal stories which convey the weight of these objects. We also think about things they carry that are not concrete objects. Things like guilt, stress, love, family, memories, and pain all come up here. And we spend some time thinking about both positive and negative weights. Next, students reflect on the list and pick the 3 most important items. They free write for 5 minutes on those 3 items. For the next class, students will create a rough draft of a letter about the one item that they are most interested in writing about. Create a letter to the person that is most connected to that item. For example, if a student chooses to write about a class ring from high school, they will write a letter to the person that the class ring is most connected to. If they chose to write about a bracelet that a girlfriend gave them, then they will write a letter to the girlfriend in which they describe why it is important. This is an area that students sometimes struggle with, yet they must come up with a specific person to write to. A lot of times students will say, oh, can I write to, everybody in the high school or something like that? And I say, no, it has to be one person. The letter must contain a vivid description of the thing you carry, an idea of the weight of the thing you carry, a sense of whether this is a positive pleasure or negative burden, an explanation of why you carry this thing, a story involving the thing you carry, and a clear sense of who the letter is written to and why they are connected to the item. So these are the required elements. Students sometimes have a difficult time coming up with a story related to the item. I often have to help them understand some of the elements of narratives in order to get a story included. If they put in some dialogue, blocking, setting description, character description, or flashback, they will usually get on the right track. We then use the reader response sheet for a peer review and focus on revisions for the final draft. My final grades are usually based on improvement from the rough draft to the final draft and the inclusion of the elements of the letter described above. And then I have examples over on the side, and they really range quite widely. Like this one is really funny. The student wrote about a wallet. Then he actually writes to the boss of the fast food restaurant that he works in because he worked at the restaurant, he could afford the wallet. And then this one is really a heavy one. It's to his dad, and it's about his mother and her death, and it was really, a heavy one to read. The weight of words, she writes about a letter that she's carried around with her from a friend and how that's affected her. And it just really ranges all over the place. And so it was another good project that you get students can really go in many different directions with it.
Very cool. Feedback, folks, or thoughts, or what do you think?
I wanted to...
Go ahead.
Fred, go ahead. Welcome.
Thanks. I had a question about the multimedia project.
Sure.
I didn't really get to explore any of them, just the little moment that you shared there, but
yep.
Is it essentially a series of clips, and how exactly did they put that together? Is that like using an iMovie editor or something like that?
Yes, we had a computer lab for the whole semester for the class, and so that's why I was able to do a lot of these projects. And we used in this class we used Movie Maker Live, I think it's called, and they would just they layered in audio. They had to record their own voice reading passages from the book that related to the topic, and they also had to include kind of how their understanding of the question they were researching had evolved through the process. And then they had to share kind of where they gathered the information. They had to have kind of background music that related to the question in some way or other. They had to find some media clips. It could be from movies or television or wherever they wanted. It could be music videos that related to the same subject that they were working on. And I was really trying to get them to find many different perspectives. It was really related to this book, The Things They Carried, which is a postmodern book. So I wanted them to explore that concept that, there are many different ways of looking at the same research question, and I wanted them to, share what they found, all the different various ways that they learned about their question. And like I've said before, it was kind of the first time I did the project. So next time I'll have some different ways of approaching it for sure. But I like the concept. I think I really think it's the way it's the way media works now. So much of media is a compilation of different ideas, and gathering information in that way is a valid part of the world. I mean, my daughter's 2 years old, and the way she goes on my smartphone with the videos of Sesame Street clips is amazing. So I just think that students today are so used to looking at the world in that way that if we can figure out some way to start harnessing that and start showing that that is a valid way of approaching the world and of learning about the world, it's going to be to everyone's advantage.
I wanted to mention a platform that I just discovered called WeVideo, wevideo.com. I just went to a presentation by them at Google. They've made a partnership with Google so that it's an online collaborative video editing environment. It looks very powerful, and they've made an arrangement with Google so that it's part of your Google Drive. So I think this is really going to be open up a lot of possibilities for this kind of collaborative multimedia work in the classroom.
Oh, Fred, that sounds great.
Absolutely. I've messed with that a little bit, though, and one caution is that it gets pretty costly really fast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
I mean, because they charge by minute for uploading the stuff, and so anyway.
Well, not in the drive, and they are exploring educational options that will get some of that cost down. So
good. Yeah,
that was my first question.
Yeah, but right now it's like, ooh, I have to pay all that to upload this thing I just edited, and yeah, I wasn't so happy about that. But anyway, yeah, back around a little bit to Tommy's work, and I think if we could go around and just get comments here at the end. that would be a really nice thing to do for Tommy. If you could just tell Tommy what you've been thinking about as you've been looking at his work. Tommy, thank you for sharing here tonight. I'm going to start by saying that description of the letter writing project was wonderfully written, and I could really follow your thinking and all that. And then I want to revise it, right? But sure. I want to keep that part, and then I want to think about how could we. It's like a genre question. How could we take your description of your process and make it into assignments that other people can do too? So that's some of the work that I want to play with this summer. But I don't want to de-emphasize at all the power of that first narrative of how you had students go through this is really important.
Sure.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Other comments? Valerie, why don't we start backwards and start with you? Just because you're all the way at the end of my list here.
No problem. Tommy, you have given me a lot of ideas that I hope I can make come to fruition. I loved the research project, and I love the letters. And I say that, Paul, I'm thinking too, because our literature is divided into time periods of genre, I'm wondering if I don't have the kids figure out what would be in the pockets or the purses or whatever of a character during a certain time period. You've got my wheels spinning, and I appreciate that because you've given me a lot to think about. And I am inspired by your good work.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Just turned off the...
there you are.
Yeah. And, I was thinking about all of the research that you had the kids do and the variety of research, and I was thinking since my 9th and 10th grade classes, I have to teach them how to do research, and it's gotten me thinking about how I can expand the types of types of sources that they can find, and how they can use them in more creative ways. One of the things that one of the questions that I had in looking at all of this is that aside from not citing the research, at some points, looking at it as an outsider, I couldn't tell what was the kids' ideas and what they borrowed from, what came from the source. So that's something that I want to be able to work on, being able to have the kids properly, say, I got this idea from somebody else, and this is my take on it, rather than having them sort of present it as their own.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Jeremy.
Well, you've definitely the research part that you did was incredible, because it's just kind of cements a lot of things for me that we had discussions with at our department meetings this year about what does research look like for middle schoolers, and doing a 4 to 5 page research paper is not the way to go. The main thing is that they understand what is effective research. It's not pumping out a 4 to 5 page paper. And I really like what I'm seeing with what you did here with Youth Voices, and it's just kind of cementing a lot of things with what I want to do with my kids next year with research. And one of the things that I would encourage, because this is what I'm going to be doing next year, because I got it from one of my colleagues, is to have your students go back, and I think Paul had mentioned it earlier too, is reflect. Have your students reflect on their pieces, because I think that's more powerful than anything, when those kids can go back and look at their writing and say, and look at what was good about it, what was bad about it, and how they can make it better. So, but great job. So it gives me a lot of things to think about for next year.
Thanks. Gail.
Thank you, and I just wanted to say that's actually both what Jeremy said and Shantanu is a question that I've been debating about a lot, and you know, my students, I always feel like it would be great if they could write 4 to 5 page research papers, and I do think they learn a lot about writing by doing that. And I think next year what I'm going to try to do is to do this project earlier, because I kind of did it at the end of the year, and I just ran out of space. And so I would prefer to do it earlier in the year and then have that time at the end, you know, for reflection and going through and maybe writing not 5 pages, but something to kind of give it a little bit more weight and a little more heft as far as a research paper goes. Yeah, that's a tough question, because a lot of the students that get involved in these technology and movie type projects, if I did a 4 to 5 page paper, they wouldn't turn in anything.
Right.
And so I don't know. I struggle with that, because I agree that it's an important thing, but I know for some of my students that's not going to help them. So I haven't figured out the exact way to do it perfectly yet, but I'm going to keep trying until I do find out a great way.
Right, but Chris or Fred, do you have any final thoughts here?
Yeah.
Good.
One of the things that I heard Tommy say a few times is, you know, the technology made a big difference. And I think that's true, but I think there are some other things that are worth unpacking, and it's too late right now. But, you know, I think about the audience that Youth Voices affords is a different kind of thing. And I think there's some kind of thing in them constructing their knowledge, you know, whether it's cobbling together a lot of different sources or media. That's, you know, I mean, the technology allows that, but there's some deeper things that's kind of happening that makes it a more powerful thing. So I think there's just more to say about exactly what's going on there that makes those things more engaging. And to me, part of it is audience. It's a real, authentic audience, and partly it's that students can construct their knowledge from the media that they know. But more to say on that.
Yeah, so they're making discussion posts. In other words, they're making a post to invite discussion. So yeah, that's really good to be thinking about, and not easy at all. Fred.
Well, I just am so impressed with the variety of the projects and the variety of the approaches that you're using. You know, I work with school-wide interventions where we're trying to encourage teachers to just try one thing. And here you've got a half a dozen different projects, each one fascinating, going. It's very impressive. We don't have time now, but one of the questions I thought of that I would love to hear your reflections on is, how do you deal with bumping up against controversial issues? Have you gotten yourself in trouble around things like that?
Yeah, I have, and it's, you know, it's just a risk you take, and with some, especially with the Google Docs and everything that's connected to Google, I kind of am in control, because it's not out on the, you know, it's on the internet, but it's restricted to our school. But when you do Youth Voices, or, you know, create a wiki, or publish on Book Drum, or put, you know, movies that they made from media studies up on YouTube, you have to be aware of that. And I haven't gotten into any trouble or anything, but my district has made it very clear that they're, you know, a little worried about that.
Yeah. So how you're working with other teachers and so forth is an interesting question to go to also. But maybe we could find some of that on your blog. Can you say your blog's name again?
Yeah, I have
in the notes, but go ahead.
Yeah, I have 2 right now. One is the one that I've been keeping for a long time, called CyBenglish, CyBenglish.blogspot.com. And that one I include a lot of different stuff. You know, I put up, you know, videos that I've seen that I think relate to education and etc. And then I also have one at Windsor, which is called windsorhightech.blogspot.com, and it's just projects that I do at the school. And some other teachers use it, but so far it's basically been my blog. And so it has all the projects that I've been doing at Windsor. And there are other ones. I did a whole project on gender studies with Clogster, and I did a character analysis with Storybird, and I did some really cool project with making movies for my media studies class. That one was great. The students really loved that one. So those are all on the blog. You can check those out.
Great ending. We do have to end here, I'm afraid. So thank you all for hanging out with us, and Tommy, thank you so much for sharing some of your work. One quick question: you've been in the profession for a couple of years. You going to stay for a while?
Yeah, I'm working next year again at Windsor, and I've got 2 classes that'll be in the lab. So I'll have 2 American Lit classes that are in the lab all semester. So they're really they love the integration of the technology there. And after that we'll see. But so far I'm really loving it. I just it's so exciting when kids get into it, you know.
Well, thank you for sharing with us again tonight. We have been talking here over the edtechtalk.com channel of the World Bridges Network, and we want to thank Dave Cormier and Jeff Lebo for that. And next week we get to kind of go through this again because Kevin Hodgins does amazing stuff too. So it'd be great to see all of that work. So join us again next Wednesday. Thank you all. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.